welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck. It's a fantastic Friday, and we're going to get right to it. We have a little bit of breaking news for North Dakota. Carson Wentz got traded to the Colts. Some people think that's a good thing. I think it's great that we can start watching him, and hopefully he'll be injury-free this year. Temperatures are going up, but we're still praying for Texas. We gotta, and the local ranchers and farmers around here too, with the cold temperatures. But things are looking up in North Dakota.
Yes.
Our first guest today is someone that we had mentioned on our Facebook page, and it was a gal whose daughter was actually asked to leave Menards right here in Bismarck, North Dakota. She didn't have her phone with, or excuse me, she had her phone, but the phone call dropped. She tried to get a hold of her mother. They would not page her mother. They asked her to leave. Two adults asked her to leave. But we're going to go right to the mom right here. She has agreed to join us. She wants to be anonymous. We can refer to her as Julie, but we're not going to use her daughter's name or anything. Julie, in your own words, why don't you just tell us what happened that day?
Well, we were going shopping, running errands. And so once we got to Bismarck, I made sure that all three of us girls had new face masks, and we used them where appropriate. And our last stop of the morning or the day was Menards. And so I talked to the girls before we got out of the van. I said, we're just going to go in and I'm going to get one item and you're going to go get another item. And we'll meet at the till at the checkout and we'll be out of the store in 2 minutes. And they said, that sounds like a deal. So we all walked in, but as teenagers do, they lag behind a little bit. But I hesitated my step and made sure both of my girls were in the Menards store before I went to get the item I was looking for. I went through the turnstile, and as I was going around by the cleaning supplies to go over and get what I needed, my other daughter came by and she said, my sister's not coming with us. And so I looked back and I saw her kind of lingering and she was just standing there. So I figured they had gotten an argument and she just walked away, which happens a lot. And so I waved my arm to let her know I'm just going to go with one item and I'll be right back. So I kept going and I got done getting my item. My other daughter got done getting her item. We walked over to the checkout and my 15-year-old wasn't there anymore. So I started to get worried. And so we left the store and I went down to look and she was standing by my van in the parking lot in the cold wind, crying and talking to her dad on the phone.
And it was negative 15 degrees that afternoon, correct?
Yeah, correct. She, what had happened, so then I got in the car, I said, let's get in and warm up. And then she proceeded to tell me that she had looked for her mask and realized that she must have left it in the car. And so these two young gals at the checkout counter were very forcefully yelling at her, you can't be in here without a mask, you have to leave, you can't be in here without a mask.
Now, was that at the manager's counter or an actual checkout lane?
Service. It was
customer
at the
service, yes.
counter. And so she said, I don't have my mask, it broke. And so they said, well, we'll give you a mask. So she walked up to the counter and she said, okay. And they said, that'll be $1.50 plus tax. And she said, I don't have any money, but my mom does. And they said, well, you have to leave the store immediately. And she said, yeah, but my mom has money. And they said, you have to leave the store immediately. And so when I was on my way over to get the item, I noticed that she called. So I tried to answer it, but the call dropped. And so I grabbed the item I needed. And as I was walking to the checkout, I tried to call her back, but it wouldn't go through. One of those fluke things with cell phones, I guess. But they bullied her and told her she had to get out, you get out, get out, get out. She couldn't stand by the door and wait for me or anything. And there was nobody else in the front of the store. And so they didn't give her the option to page me. They didn't offer to call me. They didn't offer to say, take the mask and just pay when when you find your mom, nothing like that. So there.
And did the manager come forward too at that point or not?
Well, no, from what she said, it was just these two gals behind the customer service counter that were both, and it wasn't just one who was on her, it was both. And I don't know why you have to tag team a very obvious teenage girl, because she doesn't look like an adult, she looks like a teenager.
Sure.
And so So then I turned around, went back and returned my items. And they said, is there anything wrong with them? I said, no, I just bought them 5 minutes ago, but I will never shop at your store again because you drove my daughter out into the cold. And they said, well, that's our policy. No mask. You got to get out. You can't be here.
You know, the troubling part of this story is that you were totally willing to comply. Your daughter was willing to comply. Nobody was trying to make trouble. Anybody could see that. I mean, you have to use a little bit of common sense. And she said, my mom has money. It's like, wow, they were bullies.
Yeah. But you know, Patty, it gets better than that. Tell us about the email then.
So then we came home and talked to my husband and had to explain the frantic phone call he got from my daughter because she was crying so hard. So he sent the email to corporate over there and he kind of relayed what happened and he talked about how disappointed he was. And they sent back and said, well, with 400,000 plus COVID deaths, that we want to serve you, but we don't want to die trying.
Right. I want to read that for our viewers. It says, I'm very sorry, but with 400,000 deaths and climbing, it is necessary to wear a proper mask in a proper way for your safety and ours at this time. We want to serve you, but we do not want to die doing so. Thank you for your patience and understanding.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that the most condescending, rude email you've ever received?
Well, it's hypocritical, honestly, because, I mean, we don't want to die. Hello, they sent that girl out into the cold temperatures.
And not even knowing how long her mother was going to be in the building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
15 below is not anything to laugh at. And
No.
if she's a typical teenager, I'm guessing she didn't have a hat and gloves.
Or possibly a coat. I mean, I was
Or a
thinking
warm
about
coat,
this because my daughter, she's almost 17, she doesn't wear a coat very often, you know, and I'm always like, you need to wear one. But she's like, I don't want to wear one.
Yeah.
So who knows if she was even properly dressed.
Well, and you know, here's the other thing, and I get that corporate can do what they can do, but when they're saying that there has, you know, when the governor's news conference was, what was there, 1,490 deaths from COVID in North Dakota since this started, and 96,000 plus recoveries, that does not spell pandemic. That does not spell this kind of treatment to a teenage girl in a public store that I assume wants customers.
And we don't even have the mask mandate anymore.
Right.
The mask mandate was dropped. So this is Menards' policy, is to have everybody masked. But I'll be honest, I was in there 2 weeks ago. I walked through, I didn't wear a mask. Nobody wore a mask. And Julie, we only have a minute left, but you told me that 2 grown men were in there without masks?
Yes, because I was relaying the story to a friend of mine and I hadn't told her what day it was. And she said, you know, I was just in Menards on Sunday and 2 grown men came walking in and neither one of them had masks and nobody stopped them. I said, that's funny because that's the day we were at Menards was on Sunday.
Wow, that's too bad. You know, it makes me think about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we really need to think about in these type of situations. I know that businesses have rules, but when it comes down to people,
Well, how about
we need
the
to be
6
humane.
foot rule? That's a rule,
Right.
right? And that's per the CDC is 6 feet away. You know, so if they could have like tucked her in a corner, have her stand next to a wall, that's one thing. But to chase a child out of a building because corporate has a mask mandate, it's just ridiculous. Thank you, Julie. We ran out of time. We are so blessed that you came forward with your story, and hopefully
Great.
stories like this will end. We'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. That was quite the COVID story. I mean, that is just a touch of COVID, what it has done to families right here locally. You can't even shop in a store. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this. We have Dan Schaefer with us. He is the Operations Chief for Metro Area Ambulance right here in Bismarck and the surrounding area. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you.
We're so excited that you came to visit with us because we just wanted to touch on how everyone's lives are being affected by COVID and the different calls that you've been receiving. We've heard through many friends, unfortunately, that there have been a lot of suicides lately in the area or suicide calls, and people say that it's a result of being lonely, being secluded, not being around your friends. A lot of young people are suffering with depression and all the sorts. Can you touch a little bit on that for us?
Sure. You know, it's really an interesting phenomenon. You know, as we first moved into this whole idea of the COVID, the pandemic, you know, it's things that you always train for and you're ready to do, but we look at these as kind of secondary effects that we really didn't anticipate initially. And then as we started to watch things happen, it became kind of like the secondary cause or a pandemic inside, or an epidemic inside of a pandemic.
Sure.
And, you know, prior to COVID, you know, we really did have a behavioral health issue all over the United States, and North Dakota included, and without any question. And as we watched it happen, we kind of were anticipating, watching, and we started seeing the cases start to get closer and closer to North Dakota. We were preparing, yet, you know, it's kind of like anything else. Well, we hope it just goes away, if you will, but we prepared. And then when it hit, we saw this dramatic decrease in call volume. We started not seeing people call 911. The hospitals started seeing folks not go to the hospital. And that happened in the first quarter, okay? And then come April, that shift kind of started to go right back up. And we started to see those call volumes truly increasing. But the cases were different. We started seeing more and more behavioral health issues. We started seeing more overdose issues, abuse issues. Those call volumes, those call numbers started to really truly increase. And while interesting, if you're a statistical person, you realize that, well, this isn't exactly what we bargained for. Now, of course, we had a lot of increase in COVID calls and taking care of COVID patients. But luckily, it was nothing like we saw in the big cities around, even just the last few months in California and New York again. But we didn't see a true crazy overwhelming of those patients. They were getting to the hospital. Hospitals were getting overwhelmed. But for us, it was call volume was manageable at that point. And then as we started to move into the later part of the second quarter into the third quarter, we started getting staff was starting to get affected. So we started having staff shortages because they were out with the COVID. And so they would be gone for 10 to 14 days.
Or even if they didn't have COVID, they were in contact with someone who may have been in contact with COVID.
We were pretty lucky because one of the things that we did up front and right away was we did take the precautions. And we did follow CDC guidelines fairly closely. And so our folks, when they did have contact with a COVID patient, they were prepared. Now, if they made a mistake and weren't prepared, absolutely. Now they exposed themselves and needed to sit out of the game for a while. And we worked very hard to not let that happen much. I'm not saying it didn't, but I'm saying that we worked really hard to not let that happen. And our guys were wonderfully compliant, honestly. My hat's off to our staff. They just really did a great job. But it had a huge effect on a lot of other parts of the operation. Our billing department, we've got 12 people that work inside our billing department because we bill for other ambulance services, et cetera. And we had to figure out some things to do. We had to keep them safe. And how could we do those things? And so we moved a lot of them to working from home, for example. And while functional, it took them out of the workplace, took them out of their social environment, took them away from people. For some folks, they appreciate that. And some folks appreciate that. I mean, without too many jokes there. But the fact remains that you are now removed from a society that you're used to being a part of. And so we tried to accommodate those things to keep in touch, do as much video conferencing as we could, and do Zoom meetings and that. It got to be a real challenge because in EMS and in our industry, we coach every month. We try to do reviews every month. We try to stay in front of trends, if you will, on how to take care of patients. And we had a pandemic that had a lot of whole new ways to take care of people. And it's hard to do when we're talking over a conference call or a video conference, trying to get folks to understand. Right. How do you actually mask up? How do you don and doff appropriately? And so we did a lot of things, a lot of videos, and took a lot of extra time to train. So that extra training kind of took more time out of folks' lives as well. But again, at lending back to where we were going with this conversation, we did have an epidemic prior to the COVID, and that was the behavioral health, opioid abuse, and on with all the things that we see with those things, and domestic violence and the different parts of that are involved. And so as we were working our way into that next section with shorter staffing and more calls, the calls continued to rise. And those calls that continue to rise were putting a challenge on our staff because it's mental health, behavioral health requires training. It requires the right personalities. And frankly, it involves a lot of human interaction. And you need to really be able to trust your provider. And that's a real challenge when you can't see their face. And as we talk here, we're sitting here and we're able to look at each other and we see our expressions and we use what we use as recognition. Everyone does the same thing. Like if you have a scowl on your face, I understand. But when the patients, we had to mask them up too. And if they were compliant, great. If they weren't, we had to deal with that as well. That's an extra risk for us.
Sure. I just wanted to point out, we did put the National Suicide Hotline number up on the screen. We have about a minute and a half. I just wanted to point that out to our viewers. If anyone that you know is having any concerns of harming themselves, 1-800-273-8255. I just wanted to get that up, while we're still on. But go ahead and pick up where you left off there. You got about a minute.
Sure. Well, and I think it's important that we, make everyone realize and understand that with that push in behavioral health concerns with the pandemic and the causes, we can talk about that after a little bit here, but suicide rates did go up, or at least the threat thereof, the suicide. And we did a lot of movement of patients. This in 2020, we moved patients all over the state, and in fact, it got so overwhelming for basically all of the hospitals in the state of North Dakota that were able to take psychiatric patients and behavioral patients. We were moving them from one part of the state to another, and the next day would move them to a different part of the state. And we didn't know where we were going to take them. Day in, day out, we wouldn't know. Where was there a bed? And then you run into the problem of providers. It takes a very special individual to be a provider for mental health patients.
To meet that need, right?
Right.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk more about that after we come back. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We're visiting with Dan Schaefer, the Operations Chief of Metro Area Ambulance, and we're just talking about some of the issues that COVID has brought along with it that aren't really included as a COVID cause, but just the stress that it's put on the services here. So just go ahead and tell us some more about what some of the issues are that you're having.
Well, prior to the COVID being here, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that, you know, the mental health opioid abuse problem that has been here was here, you know, and, you know, we handled it, and we've had a focus on behavioral health and how to manage that. We've got a coalition in town, and we do a lot of actual extra work trying to figure out ways to manage the mental health crisis that we really truly have for the last 6 to 8 years, and it's gotten much worse.
So why do you think, why the 6 to 8 years? What's going on? The oil patch, or what is it?
No, I can't sit here and say that I would be able to point one thing and say there in fact lies our problem, but there's a whole lot of theories out there as to what's driving our behavioral health problems. Some of it is just simply the times that we're living in, and there is a lot of there's a lot of division in our country, and there's a lot of division within cultures, and there's a lot of division just in general that we see. But there's also a problem that I can see, and this is somewhat of a personal observation, is that we have really, as a society, lost our ability to truly communicate with each other on a personal level. I blame technology to a point, but I also know that we always seem to, there's no app for this, you know, on your little telephone that says, hey, I have to go and talk to this individual when I have to sort through some trouble. And then working with human resources that I do, occasionally therein lies the problem, is that you need to sit these individuals down and say, let's have a conversation. Let's talk this out and work through our problems instead of burying it, covering it up. And it is what it is. Sometimes you just simply have to agree to disagree and move on. We have jobs to do and etc. But we've lost some of that, in my opinion, again. But as we look further, we know there's a lot of stressors in society that we didn't have 10 years ago, you know, and I think, you know, social media and some of the different things you can blame, but it really does come down to the fact that we as a country, we as a society don't get along very well with each other because we don't have to. We don't have to face them.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but don't you think too that there has been, with all the distancing that goes on now because of COVID, I mean, we were kind of on that precipice to begin with because everybody's sitting on their screen and they don't have to face anybody and they can say whatever they want to on their social media. But there wasn't that confrontation part where, oh, there they are, they're right in front of my face. And then sometimes that could work to mend some things because texting, are they mad? Mm-hmm. Are they just saying this because they care? I mean, there's all those questions, especially I think in the teen young adult area with social media when you bring that up. Do you see that since all of distancing, even with adults, it's like, what do they really mean here? You know, if you can't hear voice inflection, you can't see their face, like you talked earlier. Do you think that's played quite a large part or not?
Without question. And as I look at what we've seen numbers-wise in our local area, you know, we've seen a dramatic increase in emergency department visits and ambulance call visits on those exact things that you talked about. And why, you know, we see folks that are alone, they're by themselves. They don't and can't go visit their friends, or they can't go and be amongst humans, if you will. And that does, in my opinion, and I think statistically it kind of proves the point, that folks need to have that human interaction. And when that doesn't happen, they have a tendency, we as humans, we all have a tendency to start to draw ourselves in. And so coming from that is a huge amount of depression and anxiety. And those two things are the bigger drivers of suicidal thoughts, is that anxiety. And then with that follows through the paranoia that comes with those things. And so as we see society kind of changing and hiding and burying ourselves, now we don't have to go out and face people, and that just draws us even further into a potential depression and the things that we see happening. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and as that goes on, then we get those responses.
Can you also, I'm going to interrupt one more time. When you say behavioral health, can you kind of incorporate what areas are you actually talking? Well, suicide or whatever?
Well, behavioral health is a general topic that would involve everything from alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence, you know, and in general, poor judgment, bad choices, essentially, right? And so we kind of encompass all those things, and those are the bigger drivers that we see in those behavioral health calls that we have. And it isn't just affecting the ambulance service, you know, it affects the fire department's responses, the police department's significant responses. I mean, they spend a ton of time on those domestic violence calls, behavioral health calls, and we have seen probably a 20% increase in opioid abuse and overdoses In fact, we just ran numbers here just 2 weeks ago again, and those numbers were up over 20%, the amount of times we actually administered Narcan or the naloxone, which is, of course, the reversal of an opioid. And so that tells us we obviously have those increases in domestic
Well, and I get to
domestic
thinking
problems.
too, because at first they told us it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And everybody had to stay home for 2 weeks. We're going to shut businesses down. Just 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
And at first, that's kind of like a little vacation. If someone said, hey, you're going to have 2 weeks off. And then 2 weeks turned into almost a year now of flattening our economy and everyone's lives for that matter.
Right.
It's like everything's been flattened. So at first they're at home, it's kind of fun. Then all of a sudden, wait a minute, I'm running out of money. I don't have any money. Well, wait a minute, I can't go back to work. You know, so that's where the domestic abuse or even substance abuse and all of that would come up. At first, it might have been a lot of fun to stay home for 2 weeks. And then right after that, as soon as you know, it's like, wait a minute, it's not 2 weeks. I think the curve has been flattened, by the way. So if anybody is out there getting this message, the curve has been flattened. We need to get back on with our lives. But do you think that had anything to do with it? Like I'm running out of money, and cooped up. Some people haven't been out of their houses in a year.
Yeah. Actually, in the research that I've done over the past, those three things are probably the highest reason for those abuses. And you're absolutely right. They're anxious about the fact that they don't have any income. The vast majority, and sadly, women were the highest number of unemployed or quit their jobs to stay home and train and homeschool the kids.
Yeah, they
now
gotta watch
because
the kids.
right.
choice.
And so there was far more women who ended up at home than men, but it didn't matter. Both genders are very much affected by the fact that they are now at home and bored, can't do the things they used to do. There's no social interaction, and so guess what? They start hoisting the winos and doing their little drinking, and guess what? And all of a sudden, whoa, I got a problem, you know?
Yeah.
And yes, those things are very, very much a cause of what was going on. And again, that abuse and those things all started from those worries of no money, no social life, and just plain concerned about where their life was going. And then, of course, there's being at home, and now, wow, I'm bored.
Well, yeah, and you used to have the kids at school all day, and now mama's home, daddy's home, and 2, 3, 4, 5 kids are at home with a couple of cats and dogs, and it's just chaos.
And they're peeing on the floor.
Right?
Oh
Well,
my gosh.
but people aren't used to being cooped up alone, or cooped up together, I should say.
For that period of time.
For that length of time.
Yeah. Do you notice a certain age category more so, like is it more elderly or 50 and above? Or
We
is
have
it more
about a
the
minute
kids?
for you to answer that.
Not a problem. I can fill that minute, I think. Without any reservation, I can tell you there is no lines in the sand. It doesn't matter. I think there was, when I look back at some of the statistics, under the age of 40 actually was higher in some of those areas. Let's face it, some of the elderly are kind of used to being segregated, living at home and taking care of themselves. But no, there's no question that it didn't matter, social, economic, it didn't make any difference. But under the age of 40 actually was where our biggest uptake really took place.
Sure.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, will you stick around for one more segment with us?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, we're
wonderful.
going to take a quick break because we have to recognize our sponsors, and we hope you guys do too. But we'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Howdy folks, it's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef in all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications. If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.co for eligibility guidelines and applications.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We're visiting with Dan Schaefer, the Operations Chief of Metro Area Ambulance. And we've always have great conversations on the break as well. But one of the questions I was wondering and worrying about are the well-being checks, you know, because a lot of times you go in and you check up on mom or dad. Are you finding that people aren't being checked on as often as they used to be for fear? I know my mother's afraid, you know, she's elderly and she's afraid of getting COVID. She hasn't had it yet. And so are there those fears? Are you getting more of those types of calls or less? Or how's that working out?
Well, I'm going to take us back to February, March to start that conversation. And when this all started to brew up, if you will, you know, we didn't see any cases in North Dakota. And so everybody kind of held their own and everything was, for lack of better terms, as it was. And as we started to see these changes, we started getting the warnings, we started getting the state was involved, and of course public health was involved. And the first concern, of course, was the elderly. And so we kind of started to focus on that idea. And one of the better things, I don't know if that probably wouldn't come out right, one of the good things that happened because of this was that we tried to build some type of a phone system inside of the long-term care. And the long-term care was in the front line of this right from the start. And they did a fairly decent job of figuring out a way to make sure that they were communicating with staff members and family members to say, you know, this isn't safe to do. We need to change the way we actually run our operations and try to create that wall, if you will, of protection. But the area that was somewhat left out were, in fact, those folks that aren't in a long-term care facility or memory care facility and those things. And so they were a little bit left out of the loop. And so how did we make sure that there was a connection between those folks? And we weren't in that role, but yet did we find those roles being filled? For the most part, yes. But there was cases where finally someone would check on grandpa, grandma, uncle, aunt, or whatever, and yeah, it may have been too late. And but yet, those are some social problems that we should have fixed before the COVID hit, but that's another story altogether.
Right. You did say that you did have, your mother's also in a nursing home?
My mom is in fact in memory care in Dickinson, North Dakota, and my hats off to them and how they manage this. Only one of their residents ended up with COVID, positive COVID, while they had a few, workers that ended up that way. But my mom was, for the most part, very, very safe. But the challenge comes in that whole process with the elderly wondering why Johnny and Billy aren't coming to visit, or Susie and Mary, whatever. Did you leave your mom out of this picture? I don't know. But as that happened, that actually became a bit of a problem, and so long-term care really worked hard to try to keep them involved, keep the residents involved. And I have to tell you that they did a bang-up job making sure my mom had activities and took her mind away from the idea that folks weren't not coming to see her. We couldn't go. And even if you called her because she's in a memory care, she didn't necessarily know who was calling her per se, but when she'd see you, then she would recognize you, that kind of thing. But they did a fairly good job. One of the problems back when I mentioned March in that area, no one called 911 for a while. There were, in fact, ambulance services all over the upper Midwest, in fact, all over the United States. They literally were laying off paramedics and EMTs because their call volume had gone that low.
Because people were afraid.
They are absolutely
of
terrified.
COVID in the clinics and hospitals, right?
Absolutely. And even the hospitals were like, whoa, hey, where's the revenue? There's no revenue coming in, And
people canceled their surgeries.
They did a lot of that. Yeah, because they were going to stay home and they were going to hunker in and they weren't going to go anywhere. Well, what did that technically do? It really actually has created a bit of a problem, because we did notice that instead of going and getting to patients early, we moved into April, May, June, and now these folks were really sick and they had either had a stroke or they had a heart attack. We saw our heart attack and stroke responses just go off the charts down. And then, of course, now they're on the uptick, if you will, but we're seeing a normal to a higher level of response on the critical side. They're worse now than they were before,
right.
if you catch them early.
They put it off.
Well, that's a huge thing, and we promote calling 911 when you have the signs and symptoms of a stroke or of a heart attack. It's like, go early, go early. It saves tissue, the sooner you get in there. Now, if they don't go, then they had a heart attack or a stroke, they're not going to save that part of the brain or that part of the heart. It's gone. And they're going to have a less than functional life after that, and that's tragic.
Sure. And so how about mandatory reporting? I know teachers are mandatory reporting, reporters, and with no school last spring, how did that all work out?
That's a good one. We looked at statistically, when we look at that particular reporting, they saw a huge decline in the reporting because the domestic violence wasn't being noticed. You're hiding, you're hunkered in for 2 weeks, or you're not coming out. All those wounds will heal up, those bruises heal up, and nobody noticed, right? And so the actual, I'm gonna call him the predator, actually, the abuser, really didn't get told on. And people were afraid because, well, we're living in the same home. I can't call anybody. I can't reach out for help because it's going to be worse the next time.
It's going to get worse, right?
And so those things were actually, it's sad because when they did finally start calling, it was already beyond where it could have been, and now so to speak, the salvation gets a little worse. But again, the mental health providers are up to here full of folks in the hospital, and it's just it's tragic, and it's an abuse. Yeah.
So a question in regards to that: what do you think? It's just your personal opinion. What has had a greater impact on our community? Is it these issues that have trickled down because of the lockdown and shutting schools down and all of that, or COVID? Which one is affecting our community?
Well, there's a potato almost for me, because sadly I know a lot of folks that were very, very sick because of COVID. So it's really hard for me to dismiss how tragic that is. Yet, when we look at the long-term effect, I strongly believe that the long-term effect will be much worse on the behavioral health side, because essentially we're going to get through the COVID, we're going to get immune, we're going to have we're going to have that whole process, if you want to call herd immunity, whatever words you want to use. We're going to get to that point, but that behavioral health, the effects of that are going to drag on because it was a problem before. And now we just raised it up higher, and we're going to continue to see that as a problem, if you ask me.
Yeah, because people that did lose their jobs or weren't able to work, house payments, car payments, all of that stuff still comes due. And so there's a lot of people looking at going bankruptcy just because they have no financing to take care of bills. And money is one of the biggest problems for a lot of people that brings in a lot of arguments into a household is money. And without money, I mean, it seems like there's always enough money to buy a case of beer, but there's not money to buy,
and smokes.
you know, you hate to say that, you know, but
Yep.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
And statistically, you know, if we take all the emotion out of it, and there's so much emotion throughout all of this, no matter which topic, but I would, now this is my thoughts, and you can confirm or deny, but I still would believe that when you get ambulance calls, you saw many more calls for behavioral health things versus people sick with COVID. Am I right?
Not initially.
Not initially.
No, not initially, because it goes back to that same fear that folks had, that same fear of not wanting to get COVID. They don't want to call because they're not feeling well. So there was a lot of cover it up, dig a hole, or push it under the rug, if you will.
And it's just a cold, and it was
Yeah,
COVID.
so we had a lot more COVID calls, and then of course, but we started to see that change. We started to see, you know, they called for whatever reason. I'm coughing, and you get there, and you know, Grandma really just needed to go someplace to see some people, and if she wasn't feeling well, but why wasn't she feeling well? It could have been simply a huge depression. So we did see that change a little bit, but not initially. Initially, yeah, there were definitely a lot more COVID calls because everybody had it, right?
Right.
Even though they may or may not have. But it was a true challenge.
Okay. Well, Dan, we appreciate you coming, and we'd like to have you back again sometime. Unfortunately, we've run out of time on this segment, but we appreciate everything that you and Metro Area Ambulance does for our people right here in North Dakota. We'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on BAP.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck, or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. It's always great to have people like that from our community it's people behind the scenes that make our communities run, and we take care of each other and whatnot. But he did promise to come back because there's a couple things that we didn't even get to. But time just slips away, as you know. But our next segment is what we call the lighter side. And first of all, I should tell you, ladies, that next week we're going to announce the winner of the $1,000 prize. Woo-hoo! You guys, there were entries from all across America. Now, this is a regional show, but a lot of people watch it online. And so it's just been fantastic, all the way from Florida, California, Texas. I mean,
that's amazing.
Across the country, we had people tuning in to win that $1,000. Well, we hope they're tuning in every day, and we're guessing that they are. But we're just so excited that you found us and that you are our viewers. But this segment, we're going to talk about, it was a Facebook post that I had run across, and it was about a twin, actually an identical twin. Some people just, hey, I know someone that looks like you. I know someone that looks like you. So take a look at this little video that I found. It's heartwarming.
You alright?
Hi, my heart is racing.
You're never gonna forget this moment.
This is the most monumental moment in my life, I think.
Alright, should we find him?
I think we should. Oh my god, I'm so nervous right now. I've never been this nervous.
It's gonna be great, man. It's gonna be great.
I know, it's just something about identical twin brother, like.
Wow. You okay?
Yeah, it's just a long night, you know? Like,
yeah, of course.
All this time in New York City.
Alright.
That's just.
Where is he supposed to meet you?
I think at the fence.
Where?
I think that might be him.
The guy standing up?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you.
You're not gonna go. We gotta do it.
Yeah.
You gotta do it. Oh my god, you've been for this moment for way too long.
Yeah. Rebecca. I'm so happy. Look at us. New York City, man. I love you so much. I love you, man.
Okay, I have to say something.
Yes.
I think I'm the only one not crying out of all of you. That is what we need to get back to. I mean, human connection, finding people, that was powerful.
It was.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just, they were just speechless. They couldn't even let go of each other. They just hung on, to each other. And it's, that's what Facebook used to be, and we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the great things that Facebook was and how it brought people together like that.
Totally.
Can you imagine? But wasn't that just so empowering? It just you couldn't help but feel those feelings along the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were all nervous just watching
Yeah.
and just hanging on to every moment.
It's like, are you sure he's going to like you? You have to like each other right now,
Oh.
because there's been some that, when they've reunited, if they're adopted, and sometimes it hasn't gone well, and it's just so heartwarming to see that, and oh, wow.
Powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get back there.
Yes, we need to get back there. And that was pretty much the point of the whole segment is we just need to get closer and bring each other together. And that's what we need to get back to in life in general. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Dakota Community Bank and Trust is a proud supporter of Bismarck Cancer Center, and we couldn't be more honored to further assist them in expanding local state-of-the-art treatment for our citizens. With the capital campaign currently in progress, not only will their expansion include new square footage from this to this, but also additional medical equipment for radiation treatment and caring support to better serve their patients. We invite you to contact Bismarck Cancer Center for donations and naming opportunities towards their expansion.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck, or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.co for eligibility guidelines and applications. Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Howdy folks, it's a Canline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Canline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens.
commercial grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef in all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.